On November 1, 1980, the body of a girl estimated to be between the ages of 14 and 18 was discovered by a truck driver who had been driving past the Sam Houston National Forest. This individual called police at 9:20 a.m. to report his discovery. The victim had been deceased for approximately 6 hours, thus placing her time of death around 3:20 a.m. A rectangular brown pendant containing a smoky blue or brown glass-colored stone on a thin gold chain necklace was found around her neck. Her ears were pierced, but no earrings were found in her ears nor at the crime scene. High-heeled red leather sandals with light brown straps, which investigators would subsequently discover the girl had been seen carrying while alive, were also recovered from the scene. The remainder of her clothing was missing. Following exhaustive witness appeals and extensive media accounts regarding this unaliving, numerous individuals, all of whom are now deceased, informed investigators they had seen a teenage girl matching the decedent's description within the 24 hours prior to her murder. These individuals include the manager of a South End Gulf station and 2 employees at the Hitch and Post truck stop, all of whom described this girl as wearing blue jeans, a dirty yellow pullover, and a white knit sweater with noticeably large pockets which extended past her waist. This girl had been carrying red leather-strapped high-heel sandals. According to the first witness, the girl, appearing somewhat disheveled, had arrived at the South End Gulf station at approximately 6:30 p.m. on October 31st. At this location, she had exited a blue 1973 or 1974 model Chevrolet Caprice with a light-colored top, which had been driven by a white male. MTIS witness stated the girl had asked for directions to the Texas Department of Corrections Ellis Prison Farm. After receiving directions, the girl had left the Gulf station on foot and was later seen walking north on Sam Houston Avenue. This same girl was later seen at the Hitch and Post truck stop alongside Interstate 45, where she again requested directions to the Texas Department of Corrections Ellis Prison Farm, claiming a friend was waiting for her at this location. In response, a waitress drew a map providing directions to the prison farm, which she then handed to the girl. This waitress informed investigators that she had suspected the girl was a runaway and that in their brief conversation, the girl had informed her she was from either Rockport or Aransas Pass, Texas. The girl had also claimed to this waitress that she was 19 years old. When the waitress had expressed doubts as to her claimed age and further asked if her parents knew her whereabouts, this girl had reportedly replied, "Who cares?" Both inmates and employees of the Ellis Prison Farm were canvassed and shown mortuary photographs of the victim, although none was able to identify her. According to a detective working the cold case in the 21st century, only one inmate was of a similar age to the victim. Investigators were never able to establish a connection between the two. Investigators traveled to both the Rockport and Aransas Pass districts to consult with law enforcement personnel regarding any missing females whose physical descriptions matched that of the victim. Staff at schools in both districts were also contacted by investigators for the same purpose. Numerous Texas high school yearbooks were searched for any female known to be missing whose physical features matched her description. None yielded results, and no missing person reports relating to young Caucasian females were matched to the victim at the time. Despite the fact police and media appeals in the towns of Rockport or Aransas Pass to discover the identity of the victim failed to produce any fruitful leads as to her identity, it was thought that she may have indeed hailed from the general region she had stated to the waitress at the Hitch and Post truck stop the evening prior to her unaliving. On January 16, 1981, the unidentified girl was buried in the Addicts Addition at Oakwood Cemetery. Her burial followed an open casket funeral, and the cemetery in which she was interred is located within the city where her body was found. She is buried beneath a tombstone donated by Morris Memorials. The inscription upon her tombstone reads, "Unknown white female, died November 1, 1980." A new tombstone bearing her name, nickname, photograph, and the inscription "Never Alone and Loved by Many" has since been erected. The remains of Walker County Jane Doe were exhumed in 1999 in order to conduct a further forensic examination of her remains, including the obtaining of a DNA sample from her body. This second forensic examination of her body revised the likely age of Walker County Jane Doe to be between 14 and 18 years old, with investigators stating they believed the most likely age of Walker County Jane Doe to be between 14 and a half and 16 and a half years old. In November 2015, the case was officially reopened by the Walker County Sheriff's Office. DNA testing was also conducted upon the high-heeled red leather sandals found at the crime scene. The results of this testing remain undisclosed. Local police departments also actively monitored other missing person reports for any potential matches to the victim. Investigators have also reached out to the public via various online websites, news media and television networks in hopes of generating further leads of inquiry, all of which, to date, have been unsuccessful in identifying her unaliveress.
Several forensic facial reconstructions have been created to illustrate estimations of how Walker County Jane Doe may have looked in life. In 1990, forensic and portrait artist Karen T. Taylor created a post-mortem drawing of Walker County Jane Doe in which she incorporated an estimation as to the appearance of the necklace she had been wearing. An investigator at the Walker County Sheriff's Office has also created a facial rendering of the victim. Within the decade prior to Walker County Jane Doe's identification, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children constructed and released two facial reconstructions of how the victim may have appeared in life. The first facial reconstruction was released in 2012 and the second shortly after the 35th anniversary of her unaliving. All facial reconstructions were created with the aid of studying mortuary photographs taken of the victim. In 2020, the Walker County Sheriff's Office partnered with Othram Incorporated to attempt to identify Walker County Jane Doe via genetic genealogy. Initial attempts to extract usable genetic materials from her remains were unsuccessful, but testing on her preserved tissue samples yielded usable DNA, which was used to generate a genetic profile of the victim and construct a family tree. Through this family tree, living relatives of the victim were identified and located. DNA swabs from these individuals were used to confirm the identity of Walker County Jane Doe in 2021. On November 9, 2021, the Walker County Sheriff's Office publicly announced the identity of Walker County Jane Doe as 14-year-old Sherry Ann Jarvis, who had run away from Stillwater, Minnesota in 1980. Her identification had previously been announced in late September 2021 by forensic artist Carl Koppelman, who had produced several forensic reconstructions of the victim and who announced that her identity was temporarily being withheld to give her family sufficient time to grieve privately. Jarvis was known as Toddy to her friends. She'd been removed from her home and placed under the state's custody at age 13 due to habitual truancy and had run away shortly after her 14th birthday. Her final contact with her family was in the form of a letter penned to her mother from Denver in August 1980. In this letter, Jarvis indicated that she was frustrated at being placed in state custody but intended to eventually return home. At this formal announcement, a statement from her family was read, expressing gratitude for the dedication of all who had worked to identify Jarvis and to provide the long-awaited, albeit painful, answers to their questions as to her whereabouts, adding that they took comfort from the fact she had been identified. This statement also thanked those who had visited her grave while she had remained unidentified and emphasized the family's wish for her unaliver to be brought to justice.
The investigation into Jarvis's unaliving is ongoing, and investigators have stated discovering Jarvis's identity has given them some positive leads of inquiry that they are actively pursuing. Some individuals have speculated Jarvis may have been assaulted and unalived by a female assailant as opposed to a male. This hypothesis was initially suggested by journalist Michael Hargraves, who based this assumption upon the fact that no male body fluids were found upon or within Jarvis's body, or at the actual crime scene. Hargraves elaborated his hypothesis by stating that men who commit crimes of inappropriate nature are typically known to bite their victims upon sensitive areas of the body, as opposed to the shoulder, as had occurred in this case. The act of male perpetrators of unaliving committed with the inappropriate motivation occasionally collecting souvenirs from their victims was also noted to be inconsistent with this case, as the necklace Jarvis had worn was still present upon her body. However, the fact that it is unknown if Jarvis had worn other items of jewelry at the time of her unaliving, and that her ears were pierced yet her earlobes held no earrings, may negate this portion of Hargraves' hypothesis. Furthermore, most of the girl's clothing was missing from the crime scene. A possibility exists that Jarvis may have been unalived by the same perpetrator as another formerly unidentified unaliving victim, Deborah Jackson, known as Orange Socks, who was unalived almost exactly a year prior to Jarvis and whose body was found in Georgetown, Texas. Serial unaliver Henry Lee Lucas has also been named as a possible suspect in this case. Although the bite mark found upon Jarvis's shoulder was inconsistent with Lucas's dentistry, no prime suspects have been named in this unaliving, although police have considered the possibility that the victim was unalived by a serial unaliver. In 2017, a theory rose that Jarvis may have been unalived by the same perpetrator known to have unalived 3 other females in 1980 whose bodies were dumped alongside Interstate 45. All were strangled, some were inappropriately assaulted in a similar manner. All 4 victims were described by investigators as being high risk. One of the women, aged between 20 and 30, was found on October 15, 1980, in Houston. She was a black female with possible Asian heritage and had died approximately 3 months prior to the discovery of her body. A second female was also black. This decedent was estimated to be between 16 and 26 years old. Her body was discovered beneath a bridge in Houston in December 1980.